All right, so Matt, why does Waldo always wear a striped shirt? You know, every time you see him, he's got the red and white striped shirt on. Do you know why he always wears that?
No.
He sure doesn't want to be spotted.
That's terrible.
Where's Waldo joke? Come on. Who else has a Where's Waldo joke?
Oh, my God.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, man, I'm good.
Good.
Doing good.
Good. So, before we get into it, I want to say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that I guarantee you're going to find something on there you like, and we're proud to be members of the Podbelly Network. They also have some information out there about podcasting that was collected from podcasters if you're interested in that. Go over to patreon.com/Graveyard Tales if you want to sign up to become a patron. We do 3 different levels, and our $10 a month patrons, they get the video version of every episode we record. And if we have an ad for that week, we've started putting out ad-free versions. Now, this week, we don't have an ad in the show, so this week there won't be an ad-free because the main episode is ad-free. But if we have an ad, it'll go up on Patreon for our $10 a month. And we also do bonus episodes every week. We try to put out a bonus episode with a video. And every one of our levels gets the audio version of it. The $5 and $10 get the video version as well of the bonus episode. And then, like I said, our $10 get all of that plus the video version of the main episode and all that kind of stuff. So go check it out, patreon.com/Graveyard Tales if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. And sometimes we do shows that extend what we talked about on the main episode. Maybe it digs into a particular aspect of it. In fact, we're doing that later tonight. We're going to be doing a bonus episode on that follows up from our hypnosis episode. So, check that out. If you enjoyed that show, I know you're going to enjoy the follow-up deeper dive. So check that out. It's a great time to do it. We've got tons of bonus material there. I think you'll enjoy it.
That's right. But Matt, that's all I got. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight we're looking at a haunted house, essentially. That is a private residence. It's not one of these that sitting empty and the tours go through. These folks live there. Okay. The interesting thing about this that Adam and I were discussing before we started recording was that we weren't finding a whole lot of history behind this place. And when you start looking into the reports, you realize that there's only been reports for about the last year. So it is a fairly, new may not be the best term, but as far as haunted stories, then yeah, it's a new haunting. We've got a little bit of evidence that this place had some activity prior to, but the current owners are really celebrating it. And what we're talking about is the Henry Levy House in Oxnard, California. And, this place came up and Adam said, let's look at talking about this place. So we started doing some research, and like I said, there's not a lot of history. I mean, this is an old house. I mean, it's over 100 years old. So it's a place that you would think if you were going to stroll through this neighborhood in Oxnard and you were thinking, I wonder if any of these houses are haunted, the first one you'd pick was the one that's over 100 years old.
Right. Right.
We don't have a bunch of stories from the 50s and 60s of people having paranormal experiences there. They're all coming from about the last year. So it's interesting, but the activity that these current owners have been experiencing is quite interesting. It seems to have flared up quite a bit, and they've been doing some renovation over the last year, and it's curious to think, have they awoken something by doing this renovation?
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
But anyway, I think you're going to enjoy this because it led to me finding some other things about the town of Oxnard, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we're going to talk about that too. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. But we're going to start with the Henry Levy House. So, Adam, why don't you tell us about it?
All right. So, as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find the links to where we found the information or the books that we used or whatever. It'll be down in the show notes, down at the very bottom of the show notes. So go check that out. And yeah, my history part is going to be more brief than other episodes because, like Matt said, the history is just not out there. And what we were discussing before the mics were hot is when a house is kind of like the Henry Levy House. It's newer to the realm of haunted places, then people haven't really had any need to deep dive into the history part of it. So I feel like in a couple years, we can revisit this and find a lot more information that the current owners then went out and dug up the history of and put it into a place where we can find it. And one other thing that I'll say is we decided to do this topic, then come to find out our good buddy there, Zach Bagels, had already been to this place. So
recently.
Yeah, I hate it when we do that, but he beat us to a place again. But anyway, the Henry Levy House is located at 155 South G Street in Oxnard, California. And it's part of the Henry T. Oxnard Historic District in downtown Oxnard, California. And like Matt mentioned a little bit ago, they make sure to state in a few places, this is a private residence. Please do not disturb.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Drive by it and look at it if you want to, but don't just go up to the door and say, hey, I hear you got ghosts. Let me in. They're not going to do it.
In fact, don't do that anywhere.
Right. That's probably just a blanket statement. Don't walk up to somebody and go, I hear you got ghosts. Let me come in. I want to look for them. I got me a recorder here. Now, this says that it was built for the Levy family in 1914 by architect Homer Glidden, and apparently it's one of the few houses designed by this guy. He designed other things, but this is one of the few houses that they actually got him to design. Now, the main house is approximately 4,794 square feet with 18 rooms, and it sits on a triple-wide lot of 21,000 square feet. So for California, that is a ginormous place. I have not been to Oxnard, but in the areas that I have been in California, there's not that much space.
Yeah.
So, now, there are many original features still existing in the house, including the moldings and the light fixtures. And they say that the house is a hybrid of the Craftsman and Tudor styles of architecture. Now, the Henry Levy House is an outstanding example, this says, of a 2.5-story Craftsman shingle-style house with Tudor influences. Henry Levy, who the house is named after, was the brother-in-law of Akil Levy, who was the founder of the Bank of A. Levy, which apparently was a big thing in California. The Bank of A. Levy was real big there in California for quite a while. But Henry Levy was a bean broker and shipper.
Bean broker.
Yeah, that does not mean he was a breaker of beans. He didn't just get a bean and break it.
They were already broken when he got them.
Exactly. So he made them broker. It's like being a stockbroker or whatever. He was a bean broker and shipper. Now, a couple little fun facts about the Henry Levy House. In 1996, the television show Melrose Place filmed 3 episodes at this house for its 5th season. The house was used as the Bel Air home of Dr. Dan Hathaway, played by actor Greg Evigan. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Yeah, that's it. And in 1997, the house was used in the made-for-TV movie What We Did That Night, also known as Murder at Devil's Glen, starring Ricky Schroeder. So, yeah, if you've seen either of those, like Melrose Place episodes or the What We Did That Night, you have seen the Henry Levy House. Now, briefly, we'll look at the Levy family. And Akil Levy settled in Ventura County, California from Momenheim, Basse-Rhine, France in the early 1870s. I know I said that wrong. Don't make fun of me. Like I've said before, the Texas tongue, it gets all twisted. Now, his wife's brother, Henry Levy, came from Paris, France, and joined him in business, including starting a furniture store in Santa Barbara and establishing a brokerage business before the turn of the century, and became one of the outstanding grain and bean dealers in Southern California. They became major leaders in the growth of the city of Oxnard and its surrounding territories. So, because Matt has some interesting stuff on Oxnard as well, we need to briefly look at Oxnard a little bit. Now, the city of Oxnard was officially incorporated in 1903 with a vision of being like a European town site that was centered on a public square. So Oxnard was supposed to be kind of modeled after a European city. And this public square would be today's Plaza Park there in Oxnard. When 1907, the city's regional location and economic potential compelled steel tycoon Andrew Carnegie to fund the construction of the Carnegie Art Museum, formerly the Oxnard Public Library. It was followed by the construction of Plaza Park Pagoda in 1910. Together, the Plaza Park and Museum became cornerstones of downtown Oxnard's civic and commercial activities. Well, Oxnard's founder, Henry T. Oxnard, intended to name the city after the Greek word for sugar. He wanted to name it after the Greek word for sugar. It says, finally, frustrated with trying to communicate his desires to the state bureaucrats, he gave up and he just named the city after his family.
Adam, what is the Greek word for sugar?
Don't know. I didn't look it up.
I did.
Okay.
And it's all Greek to me.
Bump.
No,
that was all a setup for that joke. I did look it up,
and of course it's written in Greek, and I don't know, but it looks like the if you semi-translate it over to English, it looks like Zachariah.
Well, we do have, I know for a fact, we do have a couple Greek people in our Facebook group. So when this episode drops, please tell us what the Greek word for sugar is and how to pronounce it, if you could.
Okay, here's another thing, because I thought this looks familiar. So here's another one where the question says, what is the ancient Greek word for sugar?
Aspartame.
And close.
Oh, dang.
Saccharon.
Oh, yeah. So like saccharin.
So you just, it was the pink packets, not the blue one.
Yeah, I went the wrong color packet.
Sackharon is what this says. And this is from, I'm not even going to tell you what website this is. It's like pubmed.ncbi says that the ancient Greek word for sugar is saccharon. And it says the Greeks directly borrowed from the popular vernacular word shaker, Shakker, and it was Hellenized as saccharon. I love saying that.
I know.
It's Saccharon. Can you imagine?
Now,
That's why he wanted to name it that, is because he wanted to be able to say that. Where do you live, Henry? I live in Saccharon.
That's a good point. I mean, it would be, if they're wanting to make it like a European town center, that would have been a great name for it.
Yeah.
Rather than Oxnard.
Sweetest city on the West Coast.
Yeah. They would have great taglines and stuff. It's too bad that the city officials and the state bureaucrats couldn't understand because that would be great. Now, it's like, where do you live? Oh, I live on Oxnards. So remember in the 90s what nards were? So these are Oxnards. I'm sorry, Oxnard, California, but
oh God,
I'd rather it be Saccharon than Oxnard. So
right in the nards.
Yeah, right in the Oxnards. I bet they're big though. Anyway. So
like basketballs.
Yeah. Not Rocky Mountain oysters. That's California. Well, California probably. Anyway, we'll keep moving. This says that the earliest inhabitants of the Oxnard areas were the Chumash Indians, who lived in round thatched houses and were known for their well-constructed plank canoes and fine basket work. So after a number of Spanish explorations, Jose de Galvez, utilizing powers bestowed upon him by King Charles III, appointed Father Junipero Serra to head missions in Alta California. Mission San Buenaventura was the halfway point between San Diego and Monterey missions and was established in 1782. Pueblo life and sprawling ranches began to spring up around the site of the mission, and California families exerted their influence until the state of California was added to the Union in 1850. Now, in the mid-19th century, immigrants began to pour in from the East Coast and Europe. Well, about a century ago, Hollywood cinematographers and location scouts were attracted by the beauty of Oxnard's beaches. In fact, it was in 1921 that Paramount Studios found Oxnard's sprawling coastline to be the perfect standing for the Egyptian desert. So one of the most notable motion pictures of its time, Rudolph Valentino's The Sheik, was filmed here.
Yeah. And Valentino has a beach house there in Oxnard.
Yep, which is probably, he was like, man, I live here. This is beautiful. It looks like a desert. Let's come out here and... Mm-hmm. So, now other Hollywood studios and stars were soon to follow. Clark Gable bought a home in Oxnard. Charlie Chaplin headed to Oxnard when he needed a respite from his busy schedule. Most notably, John Wayne made fishing his sport while vacationing in Oxnard. So, it's kind of interesting that, Oxnard, for those of us not in California, you know of Oxnard. You've heard it, but you don't really know why you know it or whatever. But come to find out, this area is used in a lot of movies, older movies, and it's where some of these movie stars and stuff move to get away from Hollywood.
Right, yeah. To get further away from I'm sure the maddening bustle of the burgeoning Hollywood scene. We got to get out of the city.
Yeah. I've been to Hollywood, and I can understand why even Hollywood actors don't want to be in Hollywood. I mean, I can understand. There's too much going on. You could barely find a place to park. And this was 5 years ago that we went. It's been several years. And I can only imagine how busy it is now. It gets busier every year, but it was crazy then.
Okay, so like I said at the beginning of the show, owners Eric Andrist and Jeff Rizzo, who are the current owners, like we said, it's a private resident. They embrace not only the history of their home, but they embrace the paranormal side of it as well. Now, Eric has kept a blog and a video diary along with the rest of the website that details everything about the Henry Levy House. He has gone so far as to invite other paranormal investigative groups to come in and check it out. But Eric says when they moved in, they were there for about 6 months and nothing happened. Or at least he says that we noticed.
Right.
We didn't notice anything. So we don't think anything happened for about 6 months. But he says then, and this was January of 2022, a prior owner of the house wanted to remove a stone marker that they had brought from their family homestead in the Midwest, and they wanted it back. Okay. Now, he says marker. It looks like a headstone, but not exactly. I mean, it's not something you would look at and you go, that looks like a headstone. There's nothing about it that says it is a headstone, but either way, they wanted it back. And this thing is not small. And so Eric said when the construction crew showed up and started jackhammering this thing out of the ground, things started to happen. It says the first day after the construction crew left, it was the middle of the night, they were awakened by someone walking on the 3rd floor above their bedroom. And Eric says it sounded like hard-soled shoes walking on wooden floors. And he said he tried to grab his cell phone and start videotaping, but he had left it downstairs. So he said him and Jeff just laid there listening in disbelief. He said, and it finally stopped. Now, you can imagine, I mean, we've all heard stuff in our houses, okay?
Right.
I hear stuff all the time. I ignore 99% of it.
Sure.
Okay? But when you hear something that is so distinct, it makes you wake up and go, that sounds like somebody walking with hard-soled shoes on the floor above us.
I wouldn't have been able to keep laying there. I would have had to have gone and checked it out.
And that's the thing. We hear the whole footsteps above you or on the floor outside of a room. We hear that with haunted places a lot. My contention is always, you can tell the difference between footsteps and a house settling. Footsteps will have a cadence and a pattern, and you can even follow them. They're going to sound like they're getting closer or further away. So you can tell the difference.
Oh, yeah.
And so Eric and Jeff obviously were able to tell the difference in this event. So they said a few weeks passed before the construction crew came back, and they didn't have any other disturbances in between that time. It says when they came back that same night, they heard it again. And this time there was banging that went along with it, and you could hear it move down the hall to the other side of the house. And they have this on video. Okay. And you can go to henrylevyhouse.com and you can see the videos that they've posted. They also have a YouTube channel that you can see even more videos. So you can hear it. And, if it's fake, they did a good job faking it. I don't believe it's fake.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's happening. And, they're shocked by it.
Right.
It says, but once the stone was removed, the noises stopped. And so things were quiet for a while, but then in June of last year, June of 2022, Eric says he came downstairs very early in the morning and found one of the back doors hanging wide open. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Eric says, I knew I had checked it carefully the night before because I always do. So I was concerned that someone had broken into the house. He said he looked around and nothing had been disturbed. So he says, I pulled up the security camera footage from an outside camera that faces the door. Okay. Sure enough, you can see the door open by itself. And he says this is particularly unnerving since to open that door, you have to undo an electronic deadbolt that automatically locks after 15 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And then you have to turn a separate door handle to open the door. So it's a 2-step process. You have to undo the electronic deadbolt, then you have to reach and turn the door handle to actually open the door. So there's really no way that this door could have just opened on its own. Now, I've watched this video multiple times. I made Amanda watch it. I made Amanda watch it without telling her what she was watching. Okay? I knew because I had already read about it. I knew and I was looking for it. I just told her to watch it. And she goes, well, you can see a hand right there. And I said, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what they say. They say upon closer viewing, you can see something that looks like a hand reaching out and pushing the door open, and then you see a black mist fly out the door.
That's wild.
So without any kind of description, without me directing her gaze, that's what she noticed when the door opens, is that she goes, you can see the hand right there. And I said, that's exactly what they're saying. So it was interesting to me that Amanda saw that and keyed in on it without me saying anything.
Right. Which that shows you how noticeable it is. Because there's a lot of stuff that if you know what you're looking for, you can pick it out. But I mean, even for me and you who have watched hundreds of hours of this kind of stuff, there's stuff we'll miss because we're like, now, what are you talking about? What moved? What?
Yeah.
So
it's like, listen to this EVP. And then it's like, doesn't that sound like it's saying your mother sews socks in hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay, whatever. But once we implant that in your brain, then you can hear it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to what Adam's talking about. If I tell you, look right here, what do you see? I think I see a hand. What are you going to do? Look and try to make it a hand.
Sure. Yeah.
Didn't do that with Amanda, and she saw it. Okay. Now, Eric goes on to say that the door locks automatically, and if there's any wind at all, he said it blows the door shut, not open. So, that's even more credibility to this is that this door, and you can see it the way it opens. I understand what he's talking about. That if the wind was to pick up and blow, it's not going to blow this door to where it blows open. It's going to push it closed.
Right.
Now, when the door opens, the security light, the auto security light turns on. He makes a point that says it comes on much, much brighter. I don't think so. I think it looks that way on the video because the camera obviously has some type of night vision component.
Right.
And so if you've ever recorded anything with a night vision setting, what you notice is that the shutter speed and the aperture and everything adjusts to the available light. And when you introduce a sudden bright light, the first thing you see is this wah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the sun has come up. And then as the aperture adjusts, the light goes back to where it would typically be. So that's what I thought I was seeing as far as the light goes. But with the light coming on, it does make it a little bit easier to see the door and move. And look, these are some, how you find footage like this and it's always grainy. It looks like they recorded it in the 1950s. And you're like, what the hell kind of camera were they using? Not these, okay? It looks like they've got some pretty high-quality security cams in HD. I mean, it's a clear picture. So
that's good.
So
that will come in handy for the future, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, Eric and Jeff routinely document their encounters and have invited paranormal investigation groups to help capture evidence. Now, in October of 2022, multiple events were captured on camera during essentially a ghost tour, which was done by them with, some other folks.
Right.
There is a camera positioned on the second floor, which provides a view of the staircase and the landing, as well as the bathroom door. Now, there are times during the video where you can see the entire group gathered at the top of the staircase, but otherwise the area it's void of movement of any kind. A variety of sounds were also captured on this video, but most intriguing is that you can see the bathroom light turn on when the space under the door becomes illuminated. It says the group claims that no one was upstairs at the time to have flipped the switch.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't see anybody go in or out of the bathroom. So yeah, that's kind of weird. I noticed the bathroom light coming on. I just thought maybe it's got another entrance or the video skips. So I just didn't see whoever it was go in.
Yeah.
And then you see the light turn on. Now, according to the notes for that particular video, no one was upstairs to have gone into the bathroom.
Well, that's cool.
Now, the sounds appear to be a fairly common occurrence now. And Jeff and Eric have posted multiple videos on their YouTube channel with sounds that range from disembodied voices, coughs, grunts, whooshing sounds, knocking, and this strange ringing that sounds like a cross between a tiny handbell and microphone feedback. Okay?
That's weird.
So like the little bell that would be on like some wealthy person's nightstand to call the butler. Okay, and then it's this weird screechy along with it that sounds like feedback, and that happens multiple times in the video that I'm describing, but it's happened more often than that, according to what I read.
It always makes me wonder, because we've seen, not that exact tone, but we've seen something similar that several times where it's just this weird noise. It's like white noise or something that happens out of nowhere. And Scott and Forrest have a good example of that on one of their files that they've got. And you can't decipher what's being said in there, if anything is being said. But what is that? Like, is that an attempt at communication, and that's the only audible thing that we get is those frequencies? Or, I'm always fascinated by that, because people will say, well, it's a glitch in the recorder. Maybe, but if it happens multiple times with different cameras, different audio sources, then it can't be the same glitch in all of these. Right. Or it's very, very unlikely to be the same glitch in all of these. So what is that phenomenon?
Yeah. And how common are glitches in this equipment anyway?
Right.
I mean, I've got electronics that I've used without fail for years. And for one of them to just randomly throw a glitch out there that made me think that there was something paranormal going on, it would be so obscure.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't even consider a glitch, at least not on the front end.
Right.
So I'm sure there's been glitchy stuff that has caused somebody to go,
sure,
they're communicating from the other side, and that's what it sounds like when they do it. Okay, and it may very well be a glitch, but I don't think they're that common.
No, they shouldn't be. But I've just always wondered, what is that? Why? And I think it's probably just the fact that we can't hear as much of the audio spectrum as other animals can. Like maybe to a dog, they can pick up actual voices and saying something, but all we're catching is this weird thing that's happening. So that's what, when you were talking about the weird sounding like feedback and a bell ringing, that's kind of where my head went, is what is trying to be communicated here, and why are we only catching that part? And I think it's just our inability to hear more of the spectrum than we do.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. And you know, that, I mean, you and I have experienced this multiple times where my ears are not good enough to pick up something, but this microphone is.
Sure, yeah.
And there's stuff going on that I don't hear, but the microphone picked it up.
Mhm.
And I think that occurs in these investigations too.
Yeah.
Where these higher end recorders and these high end audio receivers and microphones and so forth, they're so sensitive that they pick up other noises. That's good and bad. Okay, it's good because, I mean, you know, ghosts typically don't scream and tell you, "Hey, my name is Joe and I died." You know,
Right.
That doesn't happen. Okay. But also, if it's picking up just routine noises that you don't register, then you may go, "Oh, we didn't even hear this. Listen to this."
Mhm.
And, you know, it could be a bird landing on the windowsill.
Yeah, or the refrigerator or something.
Yeah. So it's good and bad in that respect. Now, Jeff and Eric also point out that even though their first experience directly coincided with the removal of the stone marker from the yard, they were renovating the electrical wiring in the home at that same time. And how many times have we been discussing a haunted location where renovation seems to stoke the fire of
Mhm.
paranormal activity? I mean, it happens quite often.
Yeah, it puts it in a liminal space.
Yeah.
Because it's between finished states. So
Yeah. And as Adam mentioned, our old buddy Zach Bagans did visit the Henry Levy House during the season finale of Ghost Adventures from just this past November. So not really even 3 months ago this episode aired. And at the beginning of the show, the couple are discussing their experiences with Zach while sitting in the yard. Zach comments that the hauntings could be related to the is it Levy or Levy? I think I've said it both ways during this one, but
I'm not 100% sure.
But I think it's Levy would be the correct way.
I said Henry Levy until you said Levy, and then I went with Levy. So,
You're like, well, Matt must know. Actually, Matt does not know.
if,
I can't even recall what they said on the Ghost Adventure show.
if Levy is wrong, I'm wrong because you said it. So I'm blaming
That's right.
you.
Yeah, blame me. So anyway, Zach says that the hauntings could be related to the Levy sisters who previously lived in the home. But I couldn't find any information on the sisters themselves.
Right.
But Zach also interviews Jeff and Eric's neighbor, Marina, and her daughter, Rafaela Ramirez. Now, Marina has lived in this home for quite some time. And in fact, Rafaela and her sister Louise grew up in the house. And Rafaela says that the owner of the house just prior to Jeff and Eric was one of her high school teachers. And that as a child, she and her sister would visit the Henry Levy house quite often. Louise says that at some point, they just stopped going to the third floor because there was so much activity. You know, Louise describes feeling chills when they went up to the third floor and having the sensation that someone was already up there.
It's a weird feeling.
And so as much as I say, take these shows with a grain of salt, this is the part of the show that I really like, is when we're interviewing people that have had experiences there.
Yeah.
When they're telling, because you can tell when they're talking, you know, these are regular people. They're not actors. You can tell when they're telling a story and they're thinking back, and you can kind of see them reliving some of these moments. You know, I put more credence in that than I do the actual investigation.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, these shows are entertainment. And if it was just them standing around waving microphones and EMF, readers and stuff, you'd be like, yeah, this is dumb.
Well,
why would we do this?
I've said it several times. If they filmed a ghost hunting show that was 100% like most ghost hunting shows or ghost hunting trips, nobody would watch it.
That's right.
Because most of the time, it's a bunch of people standing around talking into the air with no responses. And I would say 50% of the time or more, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So they're, not saying that all these shows are faked. I'm saying that things are exaggerated and their reactions and stuff are exaggerated from what a normal ghost hunter's reaction would be for your entertainment.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But it's a beautiful home. Over 100 years old. I mean, it's very picturesque. I can see why there's been, television episodes and movies using the house as a residence for a character.
right.
Because it's really cool. And on top of that, it's got a little bit of haunted history. So, but like we said at the beginning of the show, this is new. Everything I have described, with the exception of Rafaela and Louise's childhood experiences in the house, has happened within the last year.
Right.
Okay? So there's not just story upon story upon story. Now, it could have very well have been going on. But previous owners may have decided either I don't believe in this and I'm not going to believe in this and I'm going to ignore it, or they took the path of this is some really weird stuff happening in this house. I'm not going to tell anyone about it, at least not officially.
Right.
I may tell some friends, look, I never told anybody officially about anything that happened at my house until we did it on this show. And, as official as that could possibly be. Zach Bagans isn't calling me wanting to go and check out my house.
Right.
So, there might have been a 50, 60 year history of paranormal activity. And nobody talked about it. But now Eric and Jeff are talking about it and they're documenting it and they're embracing it to the point that I told Adam, I put a tag on this to go back and check periodically and see updates from them. And it will be interesting over the next few years what kind of experiences they continue to have.
That's what I was saying before we turn the mics on is I think it would probably behoove us to do a follow-up episode on this house in a couple, 3 years and see what documented activity is now out there versus this one. We could do a compare and contrast type episode because I'm willing to bet you that within the next 2 years, they put out quite a bit of information on it, especially if just in the year that they've been documenting it, it has several accounts already.
That's right.
Nothing major, nothing huge, but it's like Matt said, we're kind of on the ground floor of this haunted house. It's an old house, but nobody's really been documenting. So Graveyard Tales is one of the first here to discuss the Henry Levi, whatever you want to call it, house.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't have as much as we normally do on these houses that people have been documenting hauntings for 50 years. So let's hope we can do a follow-up and get some good information on the follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times when Adam and I get into researching a haunted location, we come across a lot of information about the surrounding area, whether it's the town, itself, or maybe the countryside has some history. The land itself may have been a site of, Native American burials or a really bloody battle in the Civil War, something like that. And it becomes even more interesting, and that's where we talk about, falling down these rabbit holes because we're chasing something else. But we wind up learning something new. And I mean, we've come up with some other shows because of that.
Oh yeah.
Researching one topic and learn something about a new one. And that happened with this. I learned quite a bit about the town of Oxnard, and that not only does the Henry Levy House, have some paranormal activity, so does the rest of the town of Oxnard.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, and there's a paranormal investigator and author there in Oxnard. He's also called a ghost storyteller. His name is Richard Sennett. Okay, and Sennett says that he knows about more than 40 ghost sightings in the area, and he shares some of these stories in the Never 30 podcast, which is produced by the Ventura County Star. And so I grabbed a few of these because they were interesting. And so one of these was Infeliz Maria, which has been spotted twice in the area. Now, the legend for this one is that there was a woman who wanted to be beautiful in the eyes of her lover, so she made a deal with the devil to make her beautiful in the eyes of her rich boyfriend. Now, the devil told her that he would grant her wish if she killed her 3 children.
God.
Now, according to the legend, when she did that, the devil gave her the head and hooves of her boyfriend's favorite horse. I don't know what the significance is of that, but that obviously wasn't the deal. But this says that the spirit of Infeliz Maria lures young women into a life of sin. Okay, and Sennett describes this legend in the More Ghost Stories podcast episode. Sennett says that 2 people claim to have seen a woman in La Colonia wearing old-style dress with the head of a horse and hooves for hands.
That's just weird, man.
So,
weird.
I guess by making her like his favorite horse, he made her beautiful in his eyes. I guess that's where she was going. When I first read it, I thought, what, he cut the heads and the head and the hooves off this horse and gave it to him?
You think, here's a present.
No,
it's a box with a horse head and hooves.
He turned her into a human horse hybrid.
Right, which is, I mean,
that's even weirder in my opinion.
I don't know how to feel about that.
And the fact that there have been 2 sightings of a woman with the head of a horse and hooves for hands.
Mm-hmm.
This next one is good because this goes along with a lot of legends that we see in other towns. In fact, Nashville, just outside of Nashville, we've got something similar to this too. Sennett tells us the story of the damaged and bloody man that wanders near the railroad tracks on Gonzales Road in Oxnard. Now, nurses from St. John's Hospital reported seeing the man who looks like he's been hit by a train. Now, most of the time in this story, it's a headless guy or something like that. This guy looks like he's been mangled by a train.
I can't imagine what dude looks like.
Yeah. Sennett says one nurse saw him and first thought he was a homeless man or drunk or something. As she got closer, she saw that he was bloody, and then he disappeared. But they said the ghost is seen wearing a cowboy hat and old-style clothing. And it's like something from a long time, like maybe 50 or 75 years in the past would be the event that this would be tied to, according to Richard Sennett. So pretty neat, But this last one, it takes the cake. Let me tell you. So there is supposedly an evil dwarf at the Oxnard shores. Okay. Now, is this folklore? Okay. Is it complete fiction? Who knows? People have claimed to have seen a small man with a hunchback who is supposed to bring evil luck to people, according to Sennett. Okay.
Evil luck, huh?
Evil luck. Yeah. Evil luck means you're lucky, but it's evil.
Yeah, you're looking in the pursuits of evil.
Maybe. So he says there's a figure that looks like a character out of some game or something. Pointed ears, a little short man with a hunchback. He said, in fact, when he was first sighted, people thought it was just a little person walking around at night. But when he started knocking on people's windows and leering, they became more suspicious.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And what if it is just a little person and they're dressing up like this to freak people out?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Could be. I kind of doubt it, but I thought that was great. They got an evil dwarf at Oxnard Shores.
Yep. Now that makes me want to know, of everything that we've talked about, that's the one that I want to know if somebody's seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you been out at Oxnard Shores and seen the evil dwarf that's out there?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to know that too. But Sennett goes on to say, according to the National Directory of Haunted Places by Dennis William Hawke, the ghost of Rudolph Valentino is said to pace the veranda of his 1921 Oxnard beach house. Okay. And there have been several sightings of Rudolph Valentino's ghost. But they said their caretakers of the area have reported doors opening by themselves, doorknobs turning, hearing footsteps. And let's see. They said the odd thing is that the dogs don't seem to really notice it or care. So it's almost like they're used to it.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
So frequent that they just pay it no mind now.
Yeah, nothing surprising. It's just their owner walking through the house. Says, now the last person to publicly acknowledge seeing the ghost of Rudolph Valentino was tobacco heir Doris Duke and her butler, Bernard Lafferty, who saw him on multiple occasions between the 1950s and the 1980s. Now, according to Miss Duke, his appearances became less frequent as her time drew on. Now, Doris Duke passed away in 1993, and the house itself was tragically leveled in 2006. Now, some remnants still exist, but the house is still essentially lost. Nobody has reported Valentino's ghost on the property since that time. But it's interesting to note that was going on there in Oxnard, and then you mentioned Rudolph Valentino early on. So it's just another one of those oddities that I came across that looking into a haunted house in Oxnard, California.
Well, see, and it's weird because you don't think of, at least I don't, and like I said, not a California native, so maybe it's different for people in California, but I don't think of Oxnard as being a haunted city or having multiple haunted locations. And so it was cool that we came across stuff like that, despite the lack of information on the Henry House. We found out information that just as interesting. Hey, Oxnard is haunted. Got a few places that's haunted. So that's pretty cool to me. You got an evil dwarf and a dude that's been hit by a train.
Right.
And
yeah. And, some of them may just be, cool legends. And you know what? That's okay. I wouldn't expect it to come out of there either.
Right.
But, if we've got some listeners that are in and around the Oxnard, California area, and you've heard any of these stories, let us know. That'd be great. If you have any familiarity with the Henry Levy House, let us know. We would love to know. And like I said, we're going to kind of follow this. And who knows, in another year or two, we may be doing another show about all the things that Jeff and Eric have accumulated as far as paranormal activity going on in that house. Yeah, maybe even sooner. Yeah. We'll keep an eye on it and see. But like we said, let us know if you have anything that we left out. And the best place to do that is in our Facebook group. Just go on Facebook, search Graveyard Tales. You will find it. It is called The Graveyard, and it is thousands of loyal Graveyard members who post every day, everything from haunted experiences to, weird, crazy things that have happened to them, jokes. We've even had some people ask for help dealing with haunted situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's a safe place. No one's going to make fun of you. We just want to hear these great stories. You can check out our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com, and there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, or you can become a patron, and Adam laid out all the things that we have available for our patrons, bonus episodes, video, unedited shows, ad-free shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, there's a lot of stuff there. So please go check it out. We thank you to everyone who has donated to the show. So for, I don't know, that's it for Oxnard, but man,
Yep.
Who saw that coming?
I didn't.
Not me. Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.